my pleasure to be here this afternoon and tell the story of Lisata to your audience. I will mention that we are a public company listed on the NASDAQ, and as such, I will remind you that I will make some forward-looking statements during the presentation and ask you to take those into consideration as you make investment decisions. So let me start with a company overview. As Gilbert said, Lisata is a NASDAQ-listed clinical stage therapeutics development company that possesses a novel solid tumor targeting and penetration technology designed to improve the efficacy of anti-cancer drugs. So our product does not, in fact, have any anti-cancer efficacy itself. It promotes the improved efficacy of existing products of all different modalities. And in that regard, it offers us a much more efficient and rapid path to registration, since it will be used in combination with products that are generally already approved. Like most companies in our size and in this therapeutic indication, we have a very strong management team with long experience and expertise. And as I'll mention in a moment, strong intellectual property portfolio underpinning our technology. But we have several factors that are differentiating as it relates to our company profile. First, we do have our platform technology that's been validated by the existence of existing partnerships with many notable companies around the world, and we have the potential for many others, as you will see as I describe the mechanism of action of our lead program. Importantly for investors, we have a very rich pipeline of products that are being developed, and throughout that pipeline over the next 2 years, there are multiple projected product and business development milestones, any one of which could easily generate increased value and increased M&A activity as it relates to the company. And finally, and maybe most importantly in this challenging financial environment, we are extremely well funded, having almost $63 million in cash with no debt and enough money to fund our company through early part of 2026 and through all of the development milestones that I will describe during my talk today. As I mentioned, we have an experienced management team, and I'll ask you if you're interested to read the biographies that are available on our corporate website. And additionally, there are details about our patent portfolio on that website, but the important point here is that our products are protected well into the next decade. So let me talk a little bit about our therapeutic focus and rationale. Most people know that cancer is the leading cause of death worldwide and therefore a very large unmet medical need. But what they don't know is that solid tumors actually represent 90% of all new cancer cases. Additionally, solid tumors are suboptimally treated today because of ineffective tumor targeting and ineffective intratumoral penetration. And that's because there is a mixture of cells that surrounds these tumors, that's called the stroma, that acts as a barrier to all drugs getting in. Additionally, these tumors have a microenvironment of immunosuppressive cells that contributes to tumor resistance and promotes metastases or the spreading of tumors. And there really is no simple way by using dose escalation to address these problems. We have solved this problem with a targeted penetration technology that enhances drug delivery to solid tumors. It converts the stroma from a barrier to a conduit. And because of its mechanism of action, it can be combined with most anti-cancer drugs, and it is completely agnostic to the drug modality of the combination agent. Means we can combine it with many things. We also have the possibility of chemically tethering products to create new NCEs, but our initial regulatory pathway is to take the approach of co-administration, which represents a streamlined path to development. Our product also combats resistance by selectively depleting intratumoral immunosuppressive cells. Our strategic approach for the lead program from this platform, which is called LISTA-1, really takes two avenues. On the one hand, we are pursuing rapid global registration in pancreatic cancer in combination with both standard of cares that are used in this disease, but principally with gemcitabine, nab-paclitaxel. And we are as far as the middle to end of phase 2B in that indication in a global registration development program. In parallel, we're developing LSTA1 in combination with a variety of other standard of care regimens in a variety of other solid tumor cancers to demonstrate proof of concept across wide applicability and to generate increased M&A activity, partnering activity, and ultimately commercial value. As I mentioned, the company has a number of partnerships. On the development side, we are partnered notably with the AGITG, a world-renowned clinical trials testing group, academic group out of Australia and New Zealand. And it is with this group that we are actually in phase 2B in Australia and New Zealand in pancreatic cancer. We also are partnering with a foundation in Australia called Warp9, which is funding a number of our trials. And we're part of the Roche Morpheus platform, looking at combinations of drugs with atezolizumab, which is Roche's checkpoint inhibitor, as part of their search for new treatments for pancreatic cancer. Importantly, we also have a strategic partnership in China with Qilu Pharmaceutical, one of the top 10 pharmaceutical companies in China. They exclusive rights to LSTA1 in Greater China, and they've assumed all development and commercialization responsibilities and costs under the auspices of a joint steering committee that is manned by Lisata executives and Qilu executives. This deal represents up to $220 million in milestones and tiered double-digit royalties. And it's important to note that this is a very large market because many solid tumors are gastrointestinal tumors, and pancreatic cancer, gastroesophageal cancer, and other GI cancers are very prevalent in China. And as a result, we have additional opportunities for partnerships based on the possibility of many combinations. So let me take a moment and simply describe how our compound works and what makes it novel. LSTA1 is a 9-amino acid cyclic peptide that has a high affinity and selective binding characteristic for alpha V, beta 3, and beta 5 integrins, which are found on the surface of tumor cells and tumor vascular endothelial cells. Once bound to these integrins, it is cleaved by naturally occurring protein enzymes, and it forms a linear fragment called a C-end rule peptide fragment, or a CendR fragment. And that fragment has a high binding affinity to neuropilin-1, an adjacent receptor on the tumor. When neuropilin-1 is activated, the CendR transport pathway is initiated, and it forms microvesicles at the surface of the tumor, and it captures drugs in the circulation and percolates them through the cells and into the tumor. So this is a selective targeting and penetration technology that improves the accessibility of existing drugs to the target of the tumor. We have some preclinical results here that demonstrates that the product is highly specific. In this experiment, we showed that when given with a fluorescence marker, the product sequesters completely in the tumor and not anywhere else in the body. And we also have a body of preclinical work, more than 250 papers in peer-reviewed journals that demonstrate that LSTA1 combined with almost any anti-cancer agent in almost any validated solid tumor model demonstrates an improvement in the efficacy of those anti-cancer agents. But what's most important is what happens in humans. And here are the results of our completed phase 1 trial that was done in Australia with 3 sites in 31 patients who had first-line metastatic pancreatic ductal adenocarcinoma. As a phase 1 study, it showed that LSTA1 was well tolerated, that it had no dose-limiting toxicity, and that the safety of the combination of LSTA1 and standard of care was consistent with the safety of the standard of care alone, meaning LSTA1 did not exacerbate the adverse events profile. But I ask you to focus your attention on the monumental increase in response rate, complete response, partial response, and stable disease, as well as the endpoints of overall survival and progression-free survival that show unprecedented improvement in comparison to previous studies done with the standard of care alone. And it's easier to see in these graphs that for overall survival, there's a 55% increase and a 76% increase in progression-free survival. And that is accompanied by a consistent improvement in all other markers and endpoints that are tested in a trial. And it's very important in clinical trials to see a consistency of response and directionality for all of the tested parameters. So that led us to now a very rich development portfolio based upon the strategies that I described earlier. And this slide and the next list all of the ongoing trials in the variety of cancers and their status around the world. We also have cell therapy legacy programs, and I won't spend any time speaking of this, except to simply say that these programs are in late stage registration and partnering discussions in Japan. They require no further capital outlay, so they really provide just simple value upside as we move forward in our programs. And I think what's most important is on this slide and the next, you see delineated all of the trials that were in the tables that I showed previously, with a variety of the milestones that you can expect over the course of the next several years. All of these milestones being reached before our current cash out date in 2026. And the important milestones will be clustered in early 2024 and into 2025. So a very rich news flow period, and hopefully a period that will generate increased value for Lisata coming up in the very near future. Financially, as I mentioned, we actually have today more than $63 million on our balance sheet, no debt, cash through 2020 into early 2026, and a very clean balance sheet. So it makes us less susceptible to any of the difficult macro environment challenges that have been plaguing the biotechnology market for the last year or so. So I come back to my original summary. We are a company that has seasoned management and strong IP, but importantly are differentiated by existing partnerships that are worth quite a bit of money in large amounts of, in large markets of the world, with the potential for many others, many milestones that could generate value coming up over the next several months, and a very stable financial position that allows us to fund all of our programs and stay focused on growing our pipeline and providing for shareholder value. And I would suggest that Lisata today is an extremely attractive investment opportunity, given all of the potential upside coming in the next 24 months. And I thank you for your attention today and would happily answer any questions at this point in time.
Great, David. So the few questions here, quite a few ones. The first one from Damien. He's asking you, who are your competitors in the solid tumor market and why Lisata will have a great chance to succeed?
So the question, Damien, has to be answered really from two perspectives. But the most important perspective is the competitors who would be doing something similar to what we're doing. So there are a number, as you heard even from the previous speaker, a number of companies trying to develop new products in pancreatic cancer. And they're developing products that have efficacy in that. What we're doing is developing a product that takes either existing products or products in development and actually optimizes their ability to do their job. So in that regard, we really are without competition at this point in time. We're the most advanced, and this particular technology of using the CendR platform is something that is unique to Lisata and is based on work done by one of our founders, Erkki Ruslahti, who recently won the Lasker Prize for this work. And for those who are not familiar, the Lasker Prize is usually considered the precursor to receiving a Nobel Prize for work in science and medicine.
Okay, Great to answer that. Another question coming from Francis here. He's asking you, with your partnership with Qilu, when do you expect the next milestone triggering event?
So we have a number of potential milestones coming up over the next several years. There will be a milestone payment when we complete technology transfer to Qilu for them to be able to manufacture their own version of Lista-1 using the same processes that we've developed here in the United States. That could come as early as next year. We also have milestones associated with advancement into registration trials in China, and we're in discussion with the Chinese regulatory authorities now about the innovation pathway. So the next trial from Qilu could represent a registration trial. If it does, that would trigger a large milestone. If not, the next trial subsequent to that would be the registration trial. So we have a number of and these amount to tens of millions of dollars in potential milestones over the course of the next several years.
And another question coming from Paul P here. Is Lisata seeking partnerships that focus on GI-related solid tumors in particular, or some other high efficacy opportunity?
We will seek opportunities in any cancer that would be susceptible to the mechanism of action. And so the mechanism of action generally is optimized when there is tumor stroma present, and that often is in solid tumors, but it's not just GI. As you saw from the table that we went through quickly, we have gastroesophageal cancer, we have glioblastoma cancer, and we're exploring a number of other cancers that are outside of the gastrointestinal tract. So we will take opportunities from any appropriate combination.
Great. And this question coming from Half Star, and he's asking about your financial. You said you have about 60 million cash on hand. How will you plan to use them to advance your products and business initiatives? Maybe you can talk about your burn rate as well.
So our burn rate, as I said, is reflected basically by the amount of the clinical trials that we're doing. And many of those trials, we've been very capital efficient in either co-funding them, finding non-dilutive funding from Warp9 or others, or doing them in geographic locales such as Australia that provide very large R&D rebates to us and keep the costs very, very low. So that $60-odd million will fund the entire pipeline development through to data based upon what we have now, as well as funding all the company's current initiatives, including business development and also some early stage preclinical work that we're looking at in terms of other applications.
And last question coming from Lucy Du here is asking about your share holdings. Who are the major shareholders or institutions on the company?
So we have about 9 million shares outstanding. We are very closely held by a number of large institutions, including some investment funds out of Japan, in Kyoto, as well as the Standard Chartered Bank in Hong Kong, as well as a number of high net worth individuals and a number of index funds here in the United States, such as Vanguard and Fidelity. But we are very closely held, and you'll see that our volume on a given trading day is relatively low because most of our holders don't sell. Of late, we've been generating a bit more news, and that has generated some more turnaround in the stock, which has helped the stock lift. Our stock has risen about 30 to 40% in the last several weeks, and we hope it'll continue on that trajectory going forward.
Thank you, Dave, for answering all the questions and sharing your story with us here today.
Thank you very much. I hope some of your listeners will become investors in Lisata. And of course, we're very happy to take questions and have meetings outside of the conference to help people understand better. Have a good afternoon.